I just experienced the most heartbreaking fucking thing that is also really pathetic. But like so valid. Do you hear that? Do you hear? I just walked in the door. I just came home. Silence. That was the weirdest. It's like, it is 11:45 p.m. Friday night. I was out shopping. The kids are with Steven. And I'm having a hard time understanding how this feels like the first time this has ever happened, because, I mean, I moved into this apartment, partially moved into this apartment last year, and we were separated then, and there were a few times, he obviously would have the kids overnight, and I would go do stuff and come home and no one would be here. But it's almost like that. Like, I knew that then it was like, I knew we were going to try one more time. I just knew, like, I mean, the explanation there is I was only half moved in. You know what I mean? Half my stuff was over there still. That's what it is. It's because when I was shopping, I ended up finding a lot of really cool stuff for the house, like decorations and stuff, which I was thinking about when I was checking out. I was feeling super stressed about, like, spending I spent way too much money. And, I was, like, talking to myself like I'm a piece of fucking shit, making the worst decisions, and, like, and then I realized, like, I've never gotten to make a place feel like my home with, like, things that I want to buy, and, like, it's so weird because, like, Steven and even my first husband, like, they didn't give a shit. Like, they weren't, controlling or anything in that way. But what I mean is, like, sorry, what I mean is, like, I don't know, I think maybe it's kind of an autistic trait, but I just never, like, when I lived with both of my exes, and obviously with my parents, like, I never felt like I had control of the space to, like, put things where I want, or, like, establish a household how it makes sense and is comfortable to me. And the first week that me and the kids were actually here, which was, like, only, like, 2 weeks ago, I told my son, my oldest, he was up a little bit longer than everyone else, because, I try to give him that time because he's the oldest and needs some quiet time too. And he was out here with me, and everyone was. I don't know. I think they were in bed getting ready for bed or something. They weren't there, and I told him that I feel kind of silly, but that I felt really excited and happy, but also kind of stupid, because I had just realized that I can put anything in this house wherever I want. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't logically make sense to someone else. I'm not talking about, like, putting things where I want to be, like, in control of something or to have autonomy. I'm talking about putting things in locations and spots where it is accommodating and accessible and most utilized and most helpful to me. It sounds so stupid. No, it's not stupid. It's not stupid. I don't know why I keep doing that. I'm like always doing that. Like I don't, but I was saying that, like, you know, I've always thought that, like, the only example I can think of right now is, like, you know, in your kitchen, everyone has a junk drawer or a silverware drawer. Like, for some reason, like, in every house I've lived in, it's always had to be in the same spot. I don't know if that's a thing that, like, was from my mom, or I don't really know. I've never paid attention or cared. It's not like something that I've always bothered. Like, it's not like something that it, like, bothers me every day, but it's just like a little tiny thing that I told my son. Sorry, I had my face cream or my stuff is running into my eyes. But what I had told my son was, I was like, where do I normally keep the silverware drawer? And he points. And I was like, what if, I was like, we don't have to put it, what if we put it right here? What if we put it in this other opposite fucking drawer? And he looked at me like I was absolutely insane. And I'm like, I'm serious. I was like, I'm just now realizing that I have, like, the free will to, like, organize my kitchen cupboards, like the unseeable things, not necessarily decorate so much, but, like, where things are hidden, like the organization of stuff and, like, putting stuff away. And, like, I've never had my own space, and I've never been able to do that. But it's one of those hindsight things where it's like, not like in the moment I didn't know this was an issue. Like, I didn't gripe about this before. I moved out at 17, had a baby at 18, was married by 20. I had 5 kids. I was divorced and pregnant with my 3rd by 22. I was remarried and pregnant with my 5th by 25. I've moved from my parents' house to my first husband and to my second husband, and this is the first time in my entire life I've ever had a space that I can make it accessible and comfy for me, like what I like just, and I don't have to hear shit about it, and no one's gonna move it or be like, oh well, why would you put it there? That doesn't make sense. I don't even know. When I say that, it sounds like I'm, like, holding on to, like, resentment and trauma of being treated that way, and I'm not. Because I can't even think of specific instances where my mom or my first husband or my second, or Steven, ever made me feel that way, because they weren't, none of them were like that. But I think it's just, like, an unspoken struggle that maybe autistic people have, is because we take things so literal. We think that, like, for instance, if my whole life, everything in the kitchen was organized in all the drawers the same way, no matter where I moved, because I take things literal without knowing I was doing that, I just thought that that's where stuff went. So in other words, basically, I was just compliant to what was already set out for me, just because I didn't know there was something else. Like, I didn't know. I had never thought about it, didn't care, didn't know. I had no clue. I didn't anticipate on talking about that for that long, because I just realized that I didn't even explain, like, the whole thing about why I started the video. But when I came in, it was like 11:45, you know, and I came in and had to go to the bathroom. Like, you know, like when you first get home and you know you have people that are waiting to see you, you, like, run through the door and you're like, hold on, I gotta pee, and you, like, run to the bathroom and then come out and, like, then greet everybody. I did that, and the silence was like deafening. Like, it like almost like hitched my breath, and that sounds normal. I'm not even gonna go there. It sounds understandable. Because I've never been on my own. And I'm not crying because I am. I'm honestly, I'm crying not because I'm sad or like emo, like depressed, something's wrong. But I'm like processing like almost grief in a way of not realizing like I just feel sorry for, is it weird that I feel sorry for myself? Like, not myself presently. Myself up until this point. That I never felt like I had a home I could make my own. And I hate saying that because I have never struggled in that way. I want to make it very clear. Housing scarcity has never been an issue for me, other than, I mean, maybe once or twice when I was very, very little. Like, I have been very blessed and fortunate in my living situations. But I think it's the fact of, like, just almost grieving this, like, for all of the stress and chaos and turmoil and hardship and how much harder things were for me oftentimes unnecessarily, because it's something as silly as that I could have had the realization about 5 years ago. You know what I mean? And then that would have been I would have been feeling comfortable in making the house with Steven a home. Life is interesting. And before you go getting worried about me, I'm honestly, I'm okay. I think that's what's weird, is I'm almost like not okay that I'm okay. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to be heartbroken and freaking out and scared and like, what do I do? And I'm not. And it's hard for me to not be like, are we sure? Are we sure we're not really, really, really manic and this is like an episode of grandiosity and like, you know? I'm like so emotional because it's like, I'm like happy and like proud of myself for the things that I've come to understand. I need to eat something. That's also probably why I'm crying like a bitch. I won't cry over pain, like physical pain. Like, I pushed out five children. Never crying involved. Okay. I about almost broke my dad's hand, squeezing his hand hard once when I had like, I had to have knee injections in track in high school. And they had to take a needle, a big hollow flexible needle about this long, and stick lidocaine under my kneecap and in my tendons all around both of my kneecaps. No anesthetic or anything like that. And I just like squeezed his hand, about broke his hand. Did not cry. I got tubes placed in my ears, fully awake. That's psychotic. I had a hole poked in my uterus after my fourth baby. I didn't cry. Well, I cried because I was postpartum after the fourth baby, but I like, you know. I don't know why I'm still talking about that. I'm not trying to flex or anything. I don't know why that was stupid. I don't know why I kept going. Those are those info dumps that get in
think that's why I appreciate social media. Besides, obviously, like the haters and the trolls, whatever. I don't pay attention to them, but I think that's why I post things that maybe people would think are too vulnerable, or they'd be like, why are you sharing your stuff? You know, like, why are you posting that much on here? Why would you be that personal on here? And I think the reason is because the people watching that stuff are doing that because they actually want to know about it and hear what I have to say. And the only place in my life I've ever experienced that, ever, in any capacity, is from sharing on social media. Because no one physically, personally in my circle has ever... I'm just always annoying, you know, because the info dump. Like, Steven would say I would take massive info shits on his chest. I'm not dogging on him for, like, it's not like he was putting me down with it. We would joke about it, but that's why I post and, like, share vulnerable things, is because I know that, like, yeah, people might watch and maybe hate on it and be like, oh my gosh, look at this chick, but then, like, they move on, right? They're not gonna go back and annoy themselves with it again, and if they do, they're the ones with the problem. But the people who do take their time to watch it, they're watching because they're curious, or they're relating, or they're empathetic, or they're simply just wanting to be educated. And I really appreciate that. So thank you guys. I think the good thing for me is that, you know how people get upset about the digital age because it's isolating, because you're talking to people you don't actually know in real life and you're still at home by yourself. But for me, I enjoy being home by myself. I enjoy being by myself. I obviously clearly crave my own space. I don't need someone to be physically in the room with me to feel a connection, or to have love or care for them and want to be talking to them and stuff. And, like, I think that that's why it's hard, it's so sad to say it, but I think that that's why Steven and I really only do well when he's in prison. Like, I don't need someone in my space to connect with them and love on them and, like just reciprocate the energy. Like, I can do that from here. And so I really appreciate that those of you that I see, like, on all of my, you know, the recurring one, my recurring I don't like the word followers, but my recurring TikTok friends, Facebook friends, Instagram friends, whatever, Snapchat friends. I don't mean it in a way to make, I'm not saying it as a poor me, but I don't have anybody. And it's funny, I know that my family or old friends or whoever, anyone who was formerly in my life and isn't now, they would be watching this and they'd be like, well, bitch, whose fault is that? That's not our fault, you know, and valid. I'm not griping and bitching when I say it, I'm just stating that that's true. And that I appreciate the people who do still see me and still care. So anyways, I need to eat. I bet you the tears will dry up to Timbuktu the minute I fucking eat. So I'm gonna go.